Can I look at your notes?
No.
No? Okay.
That's a golden rule of journalism. But,
It was just right there. It's staring at me.
Here we go. Welcome, everyone, to the DMV Download Podcast. I'm your host, Luke Garrett, and I'm inside a new bar in town that serves no alcohol at all, and with its founder and owner, Gigi Arandid. It's called Binge Bar. It's a quite curious name. We'll get to that. But Gigi, first off, welcome to the show.
Hi. Welcome. No, I shouldn't say welcome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. So before we talk about the bar, why you created it, and what people can expect, let's first talk about the name Binge Bar. Where did that name come from?
So Binge Bar actually came about during my early years in sobriety when, in my personal experience, I was sort of isolating, obviously, trying to just manage my, the ebbs and flows of this journey. And I literally was binging Netflix series, and there were some shows that brought some sort of spiritual, deep spiritual reflection that made me feel like I was in this right journey and I was meant for this particular path for good. Yeah.
And so, let's maybe take a few steps back. Tell us about your story and how it brought you here.
Oh, wow. Well, this concept was birthed during the pandemic. But before that, it was actually through an article that I read in an airline magazine. And it was about this counselor named Chris Marshall that opened his non-alcoholic bar in Austin, Texas. He's also a counselor. He's also in recovery. And I was super inspired by that story. I can't remember at the time if I ripped the page of that magazine or if I took a picture of it. But when this space became available, and I was asked if I knew someone, like a tenant that would be willing to rent the space, or if I was ready to start my own venture, I obviously was like, I was just laid off from the hotel and lodging industry. Excuse that was the ice machine, but yeah.
We're in the bar.
Sorry about
itself.
that. We're in the bar. It happens. But yeah, something just clicks. I was in my apartment, dim light, and I just went through magazine, cut out some images that I would put on a vision board, and that's when the concept was birthed.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And can you tell us about, and this might be a difficult subject, but your relationship with alcohol? What was that, and how has that gotten you here?
I think people will mirror themselves with my story because it's totally the same. I got a DUI, but I also was in a lot of emotional turmoil involving relationships, people, places, and things, pretty much as a full circle.
Right.
But once I attended Alcoholics Anonymous, I learned I pay attention to a lot of things. So there was a culture there that stuck with me, and I knew that if I was to decide to go sober all the way and really change my relationship with alcohol, it wasn't enough for me to just stay in the room and go by the book, because I don't think like that. I think you can practically say, just by looking at this space, that I think very, very abstractly. I think of myself as an artist.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just knew once I decided to become sober, the first year of counting each day, each week, each month, of having to go without it, it was smooth. It was like a, okay, so in sobriety or in AA, it tells you that you have to admit your powerlessness over alcohol. And once I admitted that powerlessness over alcohol, I relieved myself of its powerlessness, and it no longer has power over me either. So
Right.
I then become self-empowered. So it was a mind trick for sure.
Right. And there's this idea of sanctuary, which we kind of started the show off with, and you're making a sanctuary in a very unique city, DC, which has a culture that is
Absolutely
quite tied to alcohol consumption.
Yes.
So how do you think about that?
Well, I think about it all the time because I was a part of that culture. I drank till my sobriety date back in June of 26, and I worked in hospitality, part time as like promoter. I had friends that were bartenders, that were DJs, and most of my friend group are within that type of culture. So I also know that within that culture, there are bartenders that doesn't drink. There are owners that own bars that doesn't drink.
Right.
And there are, people within their friends group who don't drink that are like, sharing their experience with friends no matter what. So I definitely put myself in an uncomfortable position to still support my friends, to still show up, make myself uncomfortable, and kind of like learn within the process. And that's how I know that when I came up with this concept, when I did my pop-ups and got some like data analytics of who my potential client base was,
Right.
I knew that there was a market for it.
Right.
Yeah.
And so let's talk more about that. You've kind of had a fantastic kind of pre-launch. I've read all the articles. You're here with me now.
Yes.
How has this idea been received?
Well, it has been received really, really well by the majority.
Okay.
But when my first backlash or my first
Yes.
experience with trolling, as they would say, was when the Washingtonian magazine article came out, and it was one of their viral posts ever, with over 6,800 likes and 500 comments.
Wow.
And I sat down and read those comments, and yeah, it was definitely like, a punch to the stomach. But I also was focusing on the positive comments, and again, being a very data-oriented type of person, I was focusing on the feedback.
Right.
So I can
And interest.
Right, exactly. And interest. That's really all my focus right now. There
Yeah.
will be people that are going to say negative things about this concept because they just can't grasp outside of their natural institution.
Yeah.
This is a very unconventional concept, and
Right.
I'm a very unconventional person, and I know that.
Right.
But I also know that there's a lot of people like me that are unconventional thinkers.
Right. And with the idea of, some people cling to alcohol,
Yes.
and they want to defend it.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
there's also some of that too, maybe.
Absolutely.
Out there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And you're more than welcome to. I'm not competing with alcohol sales. I'm actually doing the complete opposite. I don't want to do anything with it. I don't. I really don't.
So let's, talk about those drinks themselves. We've got this beautiful bar that we're looking at now.
Yes.
How are the drinks going to be made? What does it even look like? It's kind of a new world for a lot of people.
It's going to be, we're going to be doing a lot of incantation behind that bar, because I think part of the negative perception of a non-alcoholic bar is that, there's not going to be alcohol and we're going to be drinking sugars. No, we're not going to be serving Shirley Temples. Okay? I don't like Shirley Temples. When I come into a bar and I say, I don't drink, can I see your menu? And they offer me Shirley Temples, I get super offensive. But yeah, there's already gin, tequila, whiskey, and all of these things in the market. I found out there's a vodka that doesn't have alcohol that's available in France. So we're going to have those available here. We're going to have beers. We're going to have what we call RTDs, which are ready to drink cocktails. We're going to have elixirs. There's so many amazing things in this non-alcoholic movement that just goes past behind a cocktail without an alcohol, because once you remove the alcohol out of a cocktail, you get to actually enjoy all the nutrients and all the benefits of all those ingredients within that drink.
And there's another kind of idea that's tinkering around in my head, which is, people often associate bars with, alcohol, but you're opening one without it. So you kind of have to shoulder a lot of the weight, part of the draw, is so you really have to encourage people, to come. Has that been a lot of work? Is that pressure? Is that exciting? How does that make you feel?
It's all of the above. It's definitely all of the above. And it really starts with the people that are here and now within this process with me. You're actually becoming of that, you're becoming part of that equilibrium for me, having to be the first podcaster to ever host one here at Binge.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of managing
Yeah.
as far as, managing conversations, managing your emotions. It's a workshop within myself. So I get to like unearth layers of myself and unearth layers of people in this place, and it's here, it's happening. So yeah, a bar without an alcohol is gonna open whether you like it or not. I'm sorry, folks.
It's gonna be the first of its kind in DC.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, we're at the tail end of January, and dry January has kind of been this, thing that's,
Yes.
happens every year, but somehow, for whatever reason, either media and people, just in my conversations, people have been talking about it. I did a
Yes.
Twitter poll, and I got a couple hundred people that, said yes or no, I'm doing dry January, and 30% said yes. That's a good amount of, percentage.
That really is. It is.
And so
That's my capacity.
And, so if there are people who have just done dry January and they're kind of realizing, oh, whoa, it's kind of a realization moment, but they don't know how to go forward, maybe backing away from alcohol a little bit, what would your advice be to them? And could this be a place they could come to and, kind of get some space?
Yeah, that's actually what Binge is. This is how Binge is literally going to serve its purpose and what it's going to be for those folks that, not just in recovery, the tagline for my business is literally come as you are. It doesn't matter where you are in your journey, or if you're skeptical even, or you're not sold to the entire idea, I still would like you to come because you literally have that option.
Right.
It is an option. But for people that are looking into this and, after doing dry January and thinking there's just a possibility that it could be a lifestyle for them, that is amazing. If I was able to come up with a concept like this within 5 years of getting sober, just imagine what it could do for you, and with the resources that you have, the friend groups that you have, the network that you have, and what's available for you out there. Like the sky is the limit. The sky is the limit, really. I'm super excited.
And
I'm tired, but super excited.
That's fair and honest. I like that. I like that. And zero proof alcohol, dry, mocktails and stuff like that. It's not just here in DC where we're seeing this. It's kind of happening around the country. Are you connected into that? What are you seeing when you kind of pop up and look around the country?
Well, just the fact that this idea, this chain reaction started out of a magazine that that is already grown its roots in Austin, Texas. That was around 2016, 2017 when I read that article.
Right.
And that place has been open for quite a few years at the time, I want to say. And when I was doing my market research, I found out there was already 2 in New York. There's a bottle shop in Old Town Alexandria called Umbrella Dry Drinks that
Really?
offers non-alcoholic, cocktails and bottles, and host pop-ups and events. So it's already growing roots within DC. So as far as like global and other major cities or just cities in general, it's definitely like taking an upward
Trajectory.
Thank you for finishing that.
No,
sentence for me.
I could hear it. I could just see
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
And you mentioned going outside the box.
Yes.
Just in this conversation, I felt that being in this place, I can feel it and see it. The abstract. And you also made reference to AA, and I did some
Yes.
research on mocktails, and there are some part of the kind of AA community that I've read that be like, oh wow, mocktails, like I can't do that.
Okay.
Do you ever feel like it's too close, or is this a real place where people can kind of have that same vibe without the downsides, of having poison?
Yes, so it's funny that you brought that up, and thank you for sharing that research with us, and that being like a subject within this podcast, because I was having this conversation with my Cisco rep who is in the program, and that's actually how he found me. And he shared that he's not people that are, I believe, within the AA program are very protective and very territorial, and it can come off as cultish to some people.
Right.
It came off that way to me because I felt like it was truly by the book, and it was very conforming, and I just it didn't sit well with me personally, and I could tell that it wasn't relating to a lot of people within the room at the time.
Right.
Because I could see the engagement. I could see who was sharing. I could see who wasn't sharing. I could see who was coming back. But then within the mocktail realm, I'm gonna divide it into. I'm gonna break it down a little bit.
Please.
So during my early years in composing this concept, I was told that I can't even really say the word mocktail because it's offensive to people within the movement because of the root word mock, or like
Right.
mocking the cocktail, right? But in a more personal level, people in AA or people in the program, I had this conversation about my Cisco rep, and I was like, do you think that this place could be triggering? I already know the answer to this, but I wanted to see his take.
No, 100%.
And he said that it's really your responsibility, right? Whether you're in AA or you think that this place could be triggering for you, I hope that you would come to me and say that and give me that feedback,
Right.
because I want to be able to adjust. I want to be able to tweak.
Yeah.
Whether it's and there's but so much that I can do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, being in this program or being sober, you have that awareness where if you feel like you are triggered, you're more than welcome to leave.
Right.
Yeah, or say something about it, because the people that are going to be here are going to be receptive. They're going to understand exactly what you're going through, and you're probably going to get talk out of being triggered.
Right.
And that's what I cannot wait to see. It's that type of camaraderie where like I know you're healing. I know sometimes it can be painful, but there are people here that are healing louder and want to make sure that you don't have to hide behind an AA program or isolate yourself to like heal in your sobriety. Like
A safe space.
It's a really safe space. It's a sanctuary. Like
And this city is just so tied to it, so I think it's I'm personally excited to see what's going to happen here.
I'm excited too. I
Yeah.
don't, I'm super green coming into this as a first-time business owner. I'm still getting used to the word restaurateur. I can't even pronounce it sometimes. But I really don't want to put labels, and I want to see. I want to do as much trial and error and see what works and what doesn't.
Right.
And I'm really just up for the challenges that's going to come my way, and I know that I'm not the only person that's going to grow into this space. A lot of people are, and that's my focus. It's truly like the collective impact. Yeah.
Gigi, thank you so much for your time and opening this space to the DMV Download podcast and
Yes.
to people in the future.
Thank you for having me. So grateful.
Great.